Well, that animation shows the lights on at Capitol Hill, but it's unclear whether or not there are any meetings going on today. We're still waiting to see if the White House calls for another round of talks with congressional leaders today on raising the debt ceiling. Just over 2 weeks remaining until an August 2nd deadline. And last Thursday, President Obama gave congressional leaders 36 hours to come up with a plan, but the clock has run out on that request. Are we any closer to a decision, or are we right where it all began? David Drucker is a staff writer for Roll Call, and he joins us now. David, good morning.
Good morning, Jamie.
What do you expect this week?
Well, I think we'll see a few votes on some bills that Republicans would like to see passed to deal with the debt crisis. I think those bills will obviously go nowhere because I don't think the Democratic Senate will even send them to the president, and if they did, I'm not sure he would sign them. And I think once we have some votes that fail, it might put us on track to try something that could work, even though right now Republicans and even a lot of Democrats are skeptical about some of the Plan Bs that have been talked about, namely the McConnell plan, which would put the onus for a debt increase on the president. Right now, Senator McConnell and Majority Leader Reid are working on a compromise to the McConnell plan that would include, I think, about $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion of spending cuts that is meant to entice House Republicans to ultimately vote for this Plan B, or as I sort of call it, a break glass plan.
Break glass. Well, cut, cap, and balance is supposed to be introduced on the floor this week. What do you expect will happen?
Well, I expect cut, cap, and balance will pass the House of Representatives, go to the Senate, and die, just about like everything else that Republican House sends to the Senate these days. I know there are a lot of Republican senators that support cut, cap, and balance, but there's just not enough of them in the Senate to move that bill to the president.
How critical is it to have a balanced budget amendment, or do we not need it at all?
Well, I think I'll leave that to the policymakers to decide. What I would tell you is that Republicans, particularly the ones elected in 2010, just feel like the government can't control itself. And so what they're demanding is that this balanced budget amendment be sent to the states for ratification. And granted, the states could get it and reject it because you need 3/4 of the states to approve a constitutional amendment. I believe I've got my math right there. And so I'm not sure that it would matter ultimately, but it's something that Republicans feel strongly about. I think in the future it could do one of two things. It could force the hard spending cuts to keep the budget balanced. It could also force the government to raise taxes to keep the budget balanced. You never know what the future makeup of a Congress and the White House is going to be and how that balanced budget amendment is going to shake out, but Republicans feel strongly about it.
David, this president seems to be losing patience with a bit both sides of the aisle, although he's come down harder on the GOP on this particular issue. What are the chances that he takes unilateral action, perhaps under the 14th Amendment?
I don't think he's going to do that. At least that's not the indication that we've been given. In fact, if you saw some of his recent interviews, he's warning that Social Security checks might not go out after the August 2nd deadline if Congress doesn't meet it. Yeah, I think what the president has to try and do is understand where the votes are in the Republican House of Representatives and in a pretty evenly split Senate, although Democrats control the Senate, and then try and come up with a plan or negotiate a plan that can get through both houses. And I think he's in a really difficult spot, but he's given no indication that he wants to go the 14th Amendment route, and I don't think that would satisfy the markets. I don't think that would satisfy either party on Capitol Hill, and it would create potentially a very big problem.
I believe it hasn't happened since around the Civil War, so it really would be monumental if he did go that way. You talk about what the president needs to understand. What do you think our viewers need to understand at this stage?
Well, you know, I could tell you a lot about that, but here's what I would tell the viewers. This is not just about mathematics and coming up with a balanced budget or raising the debt ceiling or anything like that. This is really about the philosophical divide of the members that they have sent to Washington. Republicans, for instance, are looking at this as not just a way to come up with a palatable plan to raise the debt ceiling, but as a way to shrink the size and scope of government, which they feel went way out of bounds during the first couple of years of Obama's tenure. For Democrats, it's the same in that as much as they understand that you can't continue to overspend and that deficits are bad, they're trying to do everything they can to maintain the level of government we have now and protect Washington's ability to grow more if necessary.
Right.
And so the philosophical divide is so great that's one of the reasons you're having such a problem.
All right, what many people are saying, the size of government now could be the new normal. There seems to be thoughts on both sides of that. Thanks so much, David. Great to see you. Have a good Sunday.
Thank you. Great to see you, too.